I'll call this meeting to order. This is the Northfield Finance Committee, and it's January 21st, and we're discussing budgets at this time and interviewing our department heads. And so tonight we have the Chief of Police, and we all have a copy of his budget. So you know the routine that we ask explanations on any changes, and there's some decreases here, right? So we'll talk about those too.
They're also being recorded.
And yes, this meeting is being televised and recorded as well for the minutes. Thank you. So you correctly left off any COLA, because we'll put the accountant puts those in, and any step raises that are due your people. And as you mentioned to me that, I don't know, things would change last year a little bit, I guess, after Debbie left. So didn't have the breakdown, which you've given us this year, of the different salaries and wages, full-time, part-time, and overtime administration. So that was good, thank you. You want to tell us why you've decreased it?
Well, it's level funded to last year. The salaries and wages will accommodate 3 full-time officers and also a school resource officer. Also the 10 reserve officers and a police administrator. So that would be the total amount for.
Okay. That's the total is $3,875 less than last year's total for those for this total salaries and wages.
Yep.
Okay, good. And anything else that you want to mention that might be included in that?
No, that pretty much takes care of everything. It's not figured with a COLA or any of the step
Right.
raises, so.
And steps and so forth.
Right.
This takes care of contracts and.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't need any part-time wages this year?
The part-time wages
Should
should
be-
be, that's all included. It should be the same as last year.
So that's all in the top line there?
Yeah.
The second line down, yeah.
Well, I see the second line down, but
So
there's
we're a little
nothing
different.
requested.
We have some different information, I think, to you do, because I have my top line is 311,360, and that's exactly the same as what last year's was.
Right.
See,
So
I don't have
basically-
anything, well.
So basically, that's what we're shooting for, a 0 increase.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
But you will be using part-time officers as
Absolutely.
needed.
Yep.
Okay.
So they'll be covering the weekend shifts that are open,
Yeah,
as
see,
well
there's
as
a blank on mine. Yeah,
any holidays, vacation time, sick time they would cover. Also figured into this is some extra time for our newest officer to go to the academy. So this would also cover backfilling the shifts for the 17 weeks that he would be in the academy.
okay. Anything else, Chad?
No, I would just
Yeah, ours is
saw
going back
that
to, yeah,
45,000 last year, or 45,000
852.
this year, 85,000 last year, and then
Yeah, I don't
everything
know
was-
what happened, that those breakdowns weren't. in
Well, it must be everything's in the top line now.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
for this current year, and then he's broken it down for, yeah.
underneath, yeah.
Okay, and then the only other account is your operating expense. There's professional training, there's an increase of 1,000, I know.
Yeah, I put in an extra, that increased $1,000. There's some training that I would like the department to undergo, specifically for the sergeant. I'm getting him ready to be prepared to be able to step in the event that I leave. So I'd like to be able to send him to some additional training. There's firearms training I want to send him to be a firearms instructor, and also some other administrative type trainings.
Okay.
The only other increases, there was an increase in the
Uniforms and equipment?
the uniforms. That was per union contract. It increased 2% for the full-time officers, and
Radio.
the
yeah.
radios
Radio,
increased.
yeah.
Other than that, it's level funded, and it's a total increase of $1,359.
Yeah, that offsetting the reduction of more than that above, so this overall reduction in the police budget of $2,516, the way I figured it, combining the two. Okay. Anybody have any questions
No.
on the budget?
No.
We'll get into some of
Pretty clear.
Nothing. Okay. Then this capital plan. Want to tell us about the radios?
Okay, so
Excuse me for a minute, I have to go. I'll be right back.
Sure. Having office hours. Don't do it. Okay.
all right. So as we've been discussing for a while now, the county is going to be migrating over to a new radio system, the 800 megahertz system. We have been able to install the mobile radios in each of the 4 cruisers that we have. The last radio will be installed when the new cruiser is built out here within the next few weeks.
You anticipated this last year and got started on it, didn't you?
Right.
Yeah.
For the last few years, we knew this was going to be coming. We were also, this has allowed us to be able to communicate directly with both Winchester and Hinsdale PD, having an 800 megahertz radio in our cruisers. So the $2,000 I'm asking for will be for the installation of the base radio here at the town hall, and also for extra expenses. Our department is slated to get 10 portable radios, and these radios are pretty expensive. They're about $3,000 a piece. So what we're not going to be provided is the microphones for the radios, the side mics.
Oh, yeah.
So any money left over from the installation of the base radio, and I just gave my best estimate on what that would be. I'd like to use that money to purchase as many of the microphones for the radios that I can.
Okay. Is the state furnishing the
This,
radios?
right now, the state is purchasing the portable radios as well as the base radio, but we just have to pay for the installation.
Okay. That's a big help.
And they're talking about rolling out some of the county with these new radios as early as this spring. So I don't know if Northfield is going to be one of the towns, but
We're ready if they
we
want.
want to be ready, right?
Yeah, okay. And we talked about the wording that will be needed in the article for that, so that it'll cover these microphones that you
Right.
have and stuff, yeah. Okay. And then on your ongoing capital plan, it's vehicle.
Right, so the 2015 Ford SUV that we have is going to be slated to be replaced next year. It'll be 6 years old. It's going to have over 100,000 miles on it. So I would like to purchase a hybrid cruiser. They just come out this year. Some of the departments have purchased them, and I'd like to give it a try. I didn't originally want to get a cruiser this year because any bugs, I figured, I'd give them a year to work them out. But I'm hopeful that this may save the town some money in fuel eventually. So I'd like to give it a try.
Okay, so tell you the truth, I looked it up to see exactly what this. So it's either gasoline or diesel in combination with electric. Is that it?
Yep.
So which do you think, diesel or gasoline?
Gasoline.
The what?
It'd be gasoline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're a little bit more to purchase, but I'm hoping that it'll save us in gas in the long run.
Yeah. Is there anything in Green Communities grants or is anything that would benefit us from getting this?
Not that I've heard of.
Okay.
No.
I just wondered whether they're giving any incentives or anything
No,
like that.
not that I'm aware of.
Any questions on that?
Would you need a charging station outside?
No, it works on gas, and I guess the way it works is that it charges.
Charges itself?
Right.
It has some kind of a generator in it that
Right.
does it.
And that was one of the issues they were concerned about with the cruisers is there's so much equipment inside. The emergency lights have to run off this that they wanted to make sure that there was ample power when it was not running to be able to work the radios and
You had to
equipment.
park and have warnings for an accident or something.
Right.
Thing is drawing all the time. Then.
Correct.
Is this kind of the same type of vehicle you had as a loaner a few years ago?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And that thing was pretty powerful though. It had
Yeah.
instant pickup.
And it would be an SUV. It would be the same style as the cruisers we have now, and it would be an all-wheel drive.
And again, I apologize because I had to leave as far as doing that for a few minutes, but the rationale for going to a hybrid was
Well,
save.
I'm hoping that it saves the town some fuel.
Okay. Cost-wise, it's about the same,
No, they're a little bit more expensive
but hope offset that with
with what we'd save.
saving.
Right. And it's just better for the environment.
Yeah. I see you put down that amount, so you eventually you get all hybrids
If
it works out.
if this works out, that's what I would like to do.
Yeah.
Is switch the whole fleet over
Yeah.
to these cruisers.
Okay. What we'd have the state contract, state bids.
Yes.
I suppose. Who is there
We're
more
going.
than one?
There are a few in Mass. The one we're trying this year is out of Springfield, and I'm hoping that it works out. I'm hoping that they don't have any issues, and and maybe we can purchase cruisers from them in the future as well. Usually we go to MHQ, which is down near Boston.
Oh.
So it's a trip to get down there and have them switch the console and everything over.
Yeah.
So having it in Springfield, purchasing in Springfield,
That's better than
make it a little easier for us.
And you can get it serviced around here just like you do the current ones. And
Right.
it isn't going to be such a specialty that local people can do the service.
No, I'm hoping not. Right.
Yeah.
I'm good. Sounds good.
Anybody else?
No, I get
You too? We're all set? All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Any questions for us? Works both ways, you know.
No, I think
All right.
we're
Thank you
good.
very much.
All right. Thanks.
Have a great evening, sir.
Andrea?
I'd like to introduce you to someone. Come on up. This is Stacy Rousseau, our new town accountant.
Oh, hi. Nice to meet you.
So she just started today, so she's running around down there doing a lot of things. So
Oh, I
I
see.
don't want to keep her here for
Oh,
the
I
meeting. I
see.
just wanted you
Okay.
to meet her because she's
Well, we'll introduce ourselves.
she's
then.
getting her feet wet. So I don't want to.
I recognize the name.
Yeah, I'm from Bernardston.
Yes.
She's close by.
But you worked over at Pioneer.
I was
did.
at Pioneer for
Or-
sure.
yeah.
Yes. Yep.
By Bernie Parada.
Lois Stearns.
Dan Camp,
Sue Kaczynski.
Jack Spanbauer.
So
Oh,
she's
yeah.
working very hard. I can give you an update later on what's going on with that, but we have some things to catch up on.
So you're working tonight then?
Yes.
Yes, and
What
we
are
gotta,
you, what are you going to be, what are your hours that are, is it gonna be regular? Right now you're catching up and so forth.
right. So
Wednesday evenings is going to be my normal 4 to 8 on Wednesday evenings, and then depending on around there, I also have an assistant, and she's probably going to be in the office on Mondays and Tuesdays.
for the day.
For
So
the day.
so we'll have day coverage, and then she'll be in that one evening for sure. So she'll have evening hours for
Wednesdays.
Yes.
right.
Yep.
The public doesn't generally have a lot to do with the accountant. It's really the departments who usually need to track down information. So
Yeah.
we figured if we had the assistant in over time as she gets up and going, she'll be able to answer questions, work with departments. If questions she has, she can hold for Stacy,
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
Stacy will be in on Wednesday to deal with those. So
Yeah.
we're just working it out. It's the first week. Erin was in all day today.
Yes.
I think she's doing great already.
Yeah,
she hit the
she's
ground running.
She's doing fantastic.
She's already learned several
Yes,
things.
absolutely.
She was already entering things and organizing things.
Yes.
I'm like, she hasn't even trained on the system yet. Well, she's figuring it out. So
Okay.
she's doing really well.
Yeah.
So
And Andrea asked me, and we talked about whether you needed to come to the finance committee meetings, and
Mhm.
no, it's not essential.
Okay.
I mean,
Like I said, of course, if you guys need me, absolutely.
Yes.
I can come to
if something should come
Yeah.
up. it-
right, and maybe closer to the end of the budget before town
Yes.
meeting, you might want to come and we might talk about,
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
those kind of things. But at this point in
You
time,
know, one of you needs to come up with the amount of money that we'll have available to spend before.
we're working very hard on that right now.
Yes.
Free cash, not yet?
Oh no.
No,
Okay.
I can't give you a time frame right now.
Right now, I'll give you an update on
Yeah.
what's going
Sure,
on there.
sure.
But yes, no, she's
But then we usually level fund state aid safer
Yes.
that way.
Yep.
right.
Yep.
So some of the revenue we can hold on. We can do some projections on the other pieces.
Yep.
We just have to.
Yeah.
Once the budget's in, then you can look at all the different revenue sources and see.
We're conservative and like estimated receipts, that sort of thing. And
I'm
we're-
very conservative.
okay.
She'll be fine.
And we've never gotten burned by
That's good,
overestimating and then not coming up with the money. So
Yes.
I sort of like it that way.
Yes, I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I
Anybody
just want to bring her
comment?
up to introduce you, so we can have a.
However, are you going to be in tomorrow?
Yes, I'll be in tomorrow evening.
Come see the town clerk tomorrow. You
Because
gotta
he
get
works
sworn.
tomorrow night. You
Okay.
work tomorrow night?
Sworn in. No, she hasn't been sworn
I
in.
have to get
Oh
sworn
yeah,
in.
she has to get
Yes.
sworn
Yep. I'll be there.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
up.
Thank you.
Yes,
Nice
yes,
meeting
All
you.
right,
yes.
talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
She has lots to do.
Okay, do you want to do your updates first before the budget, or whichever way you want to do it?
We got notification over the weekend, at least I did, from the Department of Revenue that Schedule A hadn't been completed, which was something we didn't understand.
Consent.
Schedule A hadn't been
Yes.
completed, which was something we were unaware was not in. So she's trying to get some things done at the end of the month. You have to get the 1099s out. So she's working very closely with the assistant right now on getting that out. But because
yeah.
we have financial pieces in two different accounting packages, we're trying to bring that together so we can print those 1099s by the end of the month. And then she
That's
has to
important for
and then
the,
she has to complete the Schedule A. That is a part that has to go to the Department of Revenue, and if we don't complete it, should have been done November, beginning of
Yeah.
November,
Yeah.
they will actually hold your state aid. That's a slight problem in revenue we'd
Yeah.
really like to have, so she's gonna focus on that, and then she will switch to the free cash certification, so we had to take a step back, but I think getting involved with Schedule A and working on that and working on the accounts and thinking it will help her when she gets back into
you both know how to
the balance sheet
what's
isn't
priority
balanced.
right now.
Yeah, so Schedule A will help do that.
Yeah.
Right. So we had to take a little bit of step back on that, but you know, we're not in a panic mode yet. We're just, because she's has experience and because she knows how to do this, I'm more confident
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
getting that straightened out pretty quickly. And then I'm really pleased with the assistant that we hired. She jumped right in and she's already learning things that we haven't even trained her on, which really helps Stacy a lot. Takes
Are
those
they
day-to-day
working
things.
Well, the assistant eventually is going to be working more hours than Stacy.
She already is going to be working more hours than Stacy. She's going to be working the 2 days, pretty much straight up 16, 2 8-hour days right from the beginning, which is going to turn out to be a really good thing because Stacy's really going to have to concentrate on those things, which means that the assistant is going to be able to input for the warrant and do all those things that we really don't have. We don't really want to waste Stacy's time on.
Yeah.
Because we need her to finish up some of the more important tasks that she understands, having been an experienced town accountant.
And apparently is already able to do some things on her own. And
Yeah, she has really, the assistant has really jumped right in and with a little bit of instruction from Melissa has already started maneuvering around the software that we use, which is special to municipalities, but because she seems
Sure.
to be very comfortable with those things, she seems to be already finding things and inputting things and has been working on setting things up for the 1099s already. So
good. Good.
been a really productive, it's her first day. I think it was pretty productive. Melissa seems
Yeah.
very pleased
They
with
both. Today was the first day for.
Correct, for both of them.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so we're still learning a little bit about the lay of the land, as are they, as where things are, and they will be putting
Yes.
it together
Things
as we go
had,
forward.
well, it's time for catch up, I guess.
For certain things, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. So
Okay.
I think, I'm really confident that we kind of jumped right in and didn't wait, and I think we
That's
can
good.
still capture things. I'm not in panic mode, so that's
Yes.
always good. Once I get in panic mode, that's not good.
No.
But I
no.
think that bringing on someone like Stacy who has a lot of experience is really gonna help us
Yeah.
settle that out. So,
Okay. Any questions that you people have?
No, not at the moment.
Okay.
I printed these out and they were supposed to double side. I don't know why it didn't double side, although when I printed to page 1 again, it did do my request to double side. So in the future, when I update this, it will not be this long. It should be half this size. But this is the full budget piece that I'm working from.
Oh, okay.
And
You mean all
Yeah.
of the accounts for the town?
all of the accounts for the town.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be double-sided next time. I don't know why it didn't, but since it's the copier, I didn't know until I went down that it hadn't done it. And this is pretty much all the budgets that I have typed in, because we have a whiz-bang assistant up here who's able to open that PDF and make some blanks there so I can actually type them everything for you. So this is somewhat of a repeat of some of the budgets you may have, but at least it's all in one place
Okay.
so that you can start to see the budget. I don't know why some of them type in a little smaller, but we'll work on that. But at least you can see what we have. I got everything in that we have right now. Tomorrow I'll send out some third notices to a few departments that have still hanging out there, but we have quite a number of them in now.
I was going through things again today, of course. And I'm trying to do my scheduling at the same time and see what we've got and what we need. And so I sent an email to Skip this afternoon. You've been trying, I know, for some.
I have twice, but I haven't done my third round yet. But no, I have not heard from the fire department. That's probably the last big department.
I've got more. And there's emergency management that he does as well.
Yeah, it's in. Oh,
But-
yeah, EMS. I mean, what you guys call civil defense or whatever, that's emergency management.
Emergency management, I think.
Those are-
What's the story on the sewer commission? Have you seen anything from them?
It's in your back. It's in your back here.
It's
You
in
didn't
here?
she didn't send it directly to you?
No.
I've input, but her budget page and the budget pages I have, and I just typed her in just before this meeting, so there's a line missing, and I don't understand why. but I will give you, I didn't realize you didn't have hers, I can make you a copy of what she sent in.
Yeah, I don't have it. No.
But if you look in.
He's looking
It's
at
in this new one.
Yeah, looking at new one. Go
Yeah,
for it.
Yeah.
okay.
But it's not completely correct because the numbers, the lines that I had here and the number in the what spreadsheet she must have been given, the total is right on the bottom, but there's a line missing, so I gotta make a correction and I don't know why it's missing. She got like her budget request form and this schedule that was printed to me weren't identical, and that was like, it's 440. If you go to the second digit, the 01 is in all of them, and then the department code is the second code.
I see. And,
So I gotta check that one more time, because I think there's one line in here that's missing, that should be here, but I'll find out what that is, but
okay,
that's generally her budget,
okay.
so.
Concom and Ag Commission are one person, Bill Llewellyn, and I haven't heard from his.
I have the Concom, but I don't have the Ag.
Okay, so,
Concom's in here, it's 171, it's on page 7.
okay, all right.
So
You
that, I
didn't get
think,
anything, Ag is a small one, I didn't bring it.
that one I do have the Concom.
Okay.
Yeah, Ag is a small one, I don't have them yet, but ZBA I don't have.
Let's see,
ZBA is the one haven't seen,
that takes
ZBA.
some time usually.
Right.
Okay.
So that one's not in, and fire's not in.
Tech school.
Right, we don't have that in yet.
We won't, they're
For a
coming.
while. Yeah, they have they're like the school district,
Oh, yeah.
their public numbers come out in February, so we'll start to get an inkling, but we won't have an
We,
assessment.
they contacted me to see if they could come, so they're
Yeah.
set up for February 11th at 6 o'clock, and they bring the budget when
Right,
they do, but
right.
they'll come and do a nice
Right,
presentation.
so, yeah, the schools aren't in, that's 300,
Now, it's
so we'll
still
find them.
discussing, and of course, I think it's sometime in February they have to have their public hearing and on that, so,
I don't have, I think I had, I didn't put the EMS budget in here because he has way more lines
yes.
than this one. I put the salary in, but to condense it down, now he sent you a different one. Did you get the new one? The one I handed out is slightly different now than the one he just sent.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I thought it was the same.
It
I
is
didn't
not, it's
go
slightly, it's
comparing
less,
the
it's lower.
line by line, so,
If you just look at the total, I reprinted mine, and I looked at the total over on the right, and it's a different number, so he's
so
slightly
what you've
different.
got in here would be the latest one.
Right, but I don't
Okay.
have the EMS expense in here on page 13, because he has a much bigger breakout. And I just got it today, and, so what he has here, I'd have to combine into some of these line items, and I didn't do that. I put the salaries in, because that was the same, he just says part-time, and there's just part-time and director's salary in this sheet. There's a much more breakout on the sheet he sends you, and then there's a much bigger expense budget on what he sends you for the lines that I have here, so I didn't put it
Okay.
in, because
Well,
it doesn't
I
match.
didn't throw it out, but I thought, why have I got two
Well, I'll-
copies here and they aren't the
Right,
same?
well, I'll print this, I know that, I'll send it to you, but it's this big when you put, so
Well-
it's much nicer to print it this way, because then you can actually read it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'll print this again.
We've had trouble in past years, especially when people started using the computers for their budget.
Yeah.
It would drive Debbie crazy because everybody have a different format for their
Well,
budget. So
he's
we've
got a
asked-
much bigger breakout in expense than is in here, and so
Yeah,
I
Maybe-
want to talk to him about whether we can combine some of that, or maybe we want to add the lines here. He may
Yeah.
need to track certain things, so I don't want to take stuff away from him,
but
but
we
we can work out what that looks like.
like to keep the format the same. The library is another one that's a little different.
They break it out more, is what they're doing, and we can condense it down if we want. It's a question of how much detail you want, because
Yeah.
he's showing you all his detail. I'd like to expand his salary, because they just have part-time and director. And he's got part-time, he's got assistant. And I don't know that you need to break it as much as he has, but it might be nice to expand it a little bit.
Okay,
So we'll have to work on that with the new software and get a sense of what line items you want to see consistently.
Yeah,
Because this is
okay.
a really big expense line. Now, he's got account numbers for all of these, but I think some of them are the same, and he just breaks them out. So I'm seeing different numbers here than are here. They're just not
Okay.
all showing up. So I'll try to straighten that out, but.
Sure, okay.
But the only way to do that was by trying to put these things side by side, and then I quickly realized that
Yeah,
they're not the same. So I'd like to standardize this form so that this is something you guys can
Work off.
write by department as opposed to every loose sheet. I don't mind having every loose sheet myself. I do that myself, but it's nice to have a total booklet in
another
the end.
one that we should, that I want to see is the rec commission. And
They aren't in, and they've got a number of budgets in here.
you've got something in there?
I don't have anything for them.
Don't have any, no. And I
They
got
are-
the name of the chairman today from Sandra, so I'll,
We need to
See
get them,
what I can
and I
do.
will have more of on the very back pages is health insurance, life insurance.
those have
The-
come.
Well, the health insurance meeting, I think, to talk about what their expected percentage increase is tomorrow. So my hope is that once they know the percentage increase, Melissa and I usually see how many, we compute who's on, what we need,
What
what we can
plan they
expect.
have, yeah.
And then we can come up with a sheet that says, here's the totals, and then I'll put it in here. But it didn't seem worth it to put it in there tonight when we're getting the actual numbers
No, no,
tomorrow.
That's okay. Sure.
I didn't put in like the FICA, all that kind of stuff. That's all based on wages. So some of that
Yeah.
depends on what the COLA is.
Yes,
It's gonna go up by the COLA and the, whoever has step increases and COLAs. So that's a direct relationship to that. Life insurance doesn't generally change, so, I have a meeting next week with our, insurance provider. So she usually goes through things with me. She'll tell me what the estimated rate increase is, if nothing. Then I can put the other, what they call the other insurance in.
yeah,
That's all the town hall and the vehicles and all that. So these will all be coming in relatively short. We don't have the FERCog in, the council of governments in. We don't have them in yet. So some of those things,
so the assessments.
like the animal control, they're not in yet. But when
No.
that package comes, it'll contain all of those.
But those are ones that we can't do much about anyway,
Right,
they're
they're
assessments.
assessments. So those things I'll just keep filling in this spreadsheet. And then, once those come in, I'll certainly send them to you as well, but
Yeah.
then I'll fill them in and then you'll have one place to
Okay.
look.
One other thing, it's just because it's maybe different from what you've seen. You thought that the library had included the Farms Library. She puts it in there to show the state that the town is supporting another library as well, but they usually put in their own request.
Yeah, then I haven't heard from
And
them.
I'll find out
Yeah,
who it is this year down there and get it.
Yeah.
So we can
I
get
haven't
that.
gotten anything directly from them, no.
Okay, so shall we take this packet you've just given us and go through?
Well, we can certainly look at the town pieces. I did have to
Yes, and
change
your
it
accounts.
slightly from what you saw, and I can explain it.
Or
just in
if you
two
want
places.
what you had given us before, whichever you prefer.
It's whatever you want to work off of. The correct numbers are in here now, that's why page 1 and page 2 are.
Well, I
showing up.
marked up,
But you can,
I put my questions on the
That's
one you
fine.
gave us first.
they're going to be the same because they're from the same
Okay,
sheet.
all right. Well, as you have seen, we go through and we
Mhm.
ask about any increases, so, and I did check one thing here.
And I do have two changes, but I'll get to them.
Okay, all right.
The selectman's salary,
They don't get steps.
no. So the
I think
selectman's
you marked
salary,
COLA and step, and there's no steps for their,
right, but the selectman's salary should read $10,873 plus COLA.
right.
That's what needs to be there
Okay.
because that's going
And
to
then
increase it.
On yours, you luck out. I had to check the personnel policy on this one because you
That's
put
actually-
down for a step, and I thought,
It's in my contract.
I wondered if it was in your contract.
Yeah, it is.
How, now the steps in the pay plan are every 2 years.
Right.
Is that what yours is? But but I think the way the pay plan reads, we smoothed it out here a few years back. Remember, it used to be everybody's came on their anniversary of their employment, and it was a nightmare to work with. So we said it that depending when you start, it's July 1st or January 1st, I think it is.
Right, and because they did me actually as a 3.5-year contract, because I actually started at a half year. They
Okay.
put it in
Yes,
at the 1st of
yes, half-
July. But
You
my
started on a calendar year. and-
Correct, and they
So-
didn't want to do 3 years to January. They wanted to go July 1st to June, but since I started in January, so they did 6 months and then 3 years.
Yeah, okay, so there'll be you'll be here a year and a half by July 1st. And the steps are 2 years.
Right, but it's in my
So
contract. I
your
get my
step will be,
July 1st.
And then it will be the 2 years after that.
Yes.
and then it'll be 2 years.
Correct.
But, yeah, so budgeting for it will be for a half a year, I think,
Well, I mean, I'll give you, it just says plus
for
the
half
step.
the fiscal year. Because you'll get it effective.
Yeah, but it's in the contract. It's not written that way.
Oh, okay, all right, all
But
right.
that's fine. I'll show you too. It's fine. We'll
Yeah,
work
this
it
is the
out. I'm
only
not
year-
worried
That's
about
all
it.
right.
I'm not worried about it. We'll figure it
Yeah,
out.
Okay.
this sounds like the only year it's a problem or an issue as far as
Yeah,
soon
right,
after that,
no,
you go, yeah.
No, you're not
No.
getting shortchanged
No.
by any.
No, I'm
just
not
saying.
worried about it. I'm not worried about it. I'm
Okay,
sure we'll work
let's
it out.
move on then.
I am not worried that we can.
Okay,
We'll figure it out.
Now,
and then we get into selectmen's expense.
Right, and the first one I want to say is I think the old budget had a smaller number. Once I went into the budget and pulled the board's clerk position out of Concom and Planning Board, that should be $8,900.
Instead of the 52?
Right, because I pulled the rest of it out of those two budgets. I made those adjustments, so you'll have their budgets, and I think they level funded their personnel, but I took it out because it makes sense to put it all in one place. So I just literally did the 10 hours a week at the current rate she's being paid times 52 weeks.
I think last week we took 7,000 out of
We took,
planning board.
well, they used to have a few thousand, and then Concom had a few thousand, and now Rec Commission is also talking about using her
Oh,
for some stuff. So so we may make an adjustment in that budget too. So the more I can adjust so that this is actually
okay.
not impacting the budget much, it just shows up in this line item as a new chunk.
Yeah, I keep bringing it up, but there's one other thing I thought of about having it, charging it to the departments that are using it or the committees. How are you going to handle it? Now, sometimes some of these have legal rulings on them, not rulings, I guess, a law
obligation.
allows the town to charge the applicant in some cases for some of the work that we have to do some research and stuff like that. And if that involves this secretary, how
We
is
would
that?
we would just ask her to track her hours on that project.
Usually what happens as far as doing that, like the zoning board or planning board, they fill out the application, there's a fee involved. And the fee should cover the cost of the advertisements that you have to put in the
Yeah.
paper and that sort of thing. But if it goes over and above that, then you can go back to the applicant and ask them to pay for it as far as doing that. But as far as internal things like the secretaries, that would be up to the responsibility of the board.
Well, there might be.
Right, most of
some-
them, the fees are supposed to cover the administrative expense. The only time you tend to get into fees that don't cover the administrative expense is when you have to hire a specialist or a
Yes.
professional or a consultant.
Yeah,
And then that's a direct cost. We hire a consultant.
That
This
one
person
makes
is not
sense.
the consultant.
yeah.
And then that gets charged directly to them. That wouldn't interfere with the board's clerk position
Okay.
at all.
Okay,
It's a different kind of fee for a consultant.
okay.
Um,
And then,
The number that's also up, just so you know, is under Selectmen's Technology.
yes,
Well, last year, you did an article to add ClearGov to the town, and that actually includes an annual fee once you do it. It's like a website. So I had to increase that line item. That line item already covers the town's website and our annual fees for our domain. But now I've added the charge for ClearGov. So for .gov, ClearGov, and our website.
So it added
That's those three, that's what makes that
so
up
it was a $2,500 fee.
increase.
per year. Just like your,
Yeah.
well, it's 2,000, but we had an increase in the .gov
Oh.
charge, which is the annual fee we pay for our domain. So,
Okay.
so that's really the change there pretty much.
Meeting and seminar.
$500 increase for meetings and seminars.
There's 5 of them instead of 3 of them. So I'm just thinking
Oh,
if they
okay.
start going to things,
You think it's going to pass then?
you
You
got to
have to-
budget for it.
You have to
Even if, I
prepare
mean,
for it.
you kind of have to
I
budget
know,
for
I
it
know.
because the budget will be passed.
You have to
I-
plan just in case.
The warrants will be printed. I mean, we have to
Sure, that's
we
all
have to
right.
count on it happening, and we have to budget for that.
And postage going up
And
300.
it's always going up. Plus the fee we pay for the annual. So that's. So I tried to move it around a little bit just to cut. I think I cut back on.
And dues and memberships going up 200.
Yeah, those go up by amounts you spend often on
Okay.
salary and such. The more we
So
spend
the
for people,
increase-
the more we spend for.
Increase in selectmen's expense is 8,700 here.
So
About half.
that's mostly, but you have to remember, some of that from the board's clerk is actually coming out of other budgets, so
Yes,
we are seeing an
That's
increase
true.
in that line item, but
Yeah.
it's corresponding to at least
right.
half of that out of other budgets.
It's really not an increase in,
It'll be some increase, because we
But,
did
yeah.
put the board's clerk in more hours than they probably would have worked for those departments, but for the project that we're doing, but it's offset by those others.
okay, then on the other side, under, for your expense,
Yeah, I've already I've already paid for many things already out of for the meetings and seminars myself, and I need to go to do some trainings to keep my procurement certification.
okay,
That's a 3-year certification, so I have
Yes.
3 years to attend the procurement class. Just some of the, if I don't want to take the big classes again, which are $900 a piece, I can attend some of the smaller things along the way. And then when 3 years come, I am going to have to take a renewal class, but I'll have all the credits I need
I
to
see.
renew. So I need to attend some additional trainings for certificate to keep my procurement certifications. So that's really the biggest change in that.
They still, you have to go to Boston for that still?
No, for my procurement class, Huntington was where I took mine. But the classes, let's see, one of the things I did was it was at Worcester at the DCU. I went to the procurement. They have a big annual procurement thing, and by attending 2 or 3 of the classes there, I could do them all together. But I have to go to probably 2 or 3 more around places. I try to do everything. I wait till I can see what's in the western end of the state.
Yeah.
I won't drive to Boston for a half a day procurement
Oh,
class. I can find them closer than that.
okay.
So that's really those increases.
And,
Mileage to do it.
and dues and memberships too.
Yeah, those have already gone up.
All right.
It was already over the budget this year. It's a few dollars, but they don't go down.
Now, the audit, have we had it, I think we've had a special article in the past for the audits. I know we
Correct.
have.
Correct.
So we've got it in here, so we'll be putting it in again this year then.
We'll have to add an article for the last audit. You used the money for 18s. You appropriated 19s last year, and we'll appropriate for a 20 audit in 2021. And then we'll have done 3 in a row, and we'll have a year off.
Yes, that's it.
That's
We'll
my
have it
hope.
Caught up.
Correct. And then that should give it a rest for a while.
Okay, here's one that's, what was this undefined sub-account?
No, what are you talking
Oh, that
about?
was the OPEB study, okay,
Right.
let's see.
Some of that stuff is not.
That's not. Now, legal expense, you're looking for 10% more?
I was,
Approximately.
yeah, I think we're gonna be tight
Little
this
over that.
year.
You will be what?
I think we're gonna be tight this year.
Yeah. Okay,
Maybe some-
things going on that we,
Yeah, that we have to resolve. I'm
Yes.
hopeful that
Okay.
we'll be all set, but,
there's one,
and then I have to, the other,
aside from this, just so we're all on the same page on this, there's one department that's put in and wants to establish a legal line. And I am not going to be recommending it, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but we have always consolidated the legal expense into one line item, and it's the town administrator now that has to control who's calling and so forth. We're not trying to deny them legal counsel if they need it, but you could get somebody new on a board or a committee that doesn't know the answer to things, but somebody else in the town hall might have the experience to know that answer. So we can't just say, oh sure, go ahead, you can call town council.
I like to work with them, not to screen them so much as to try and narrow their questions to be as complete as possible, because if you ask a
You're
lawyer
paid by the
something
hour.
vague, you're going to get either a very extensive answer, or you're going to get might not be a productive answer, might not be what you want. So by allowing me to work with them, it allows me to question them, to try to drill down to what it is they really want the answer to. What is it you really want to know? And shape that question or those questions in such a way that we can say we need the answers to 1, 2, 3, and get very specific answers. Because if you ask general questions, they can't read your mind. They don't know exactly what your issue is. So I've often typed letters to them where I said, we know this, we know this, we know this, and that's why we've led to this question. Because if you ask them up at the top, well, how come this? They're going to research the first 3. We may know the answers to those 3.
Sure.
We know.
Right.
This is really our question, and it saves you all the expense and time from having them answer questions you may actually already know the answer to.
And I have always felt with questions that the way you phrase your question determines the way you'll get an answer to, and just what you're saying now, so forth. Kind of a humorous thing from years ago, someone came in, talked to Sandra, I believe she was back in her early days, and wanted the number of town council. And he was having a dispute with his neighbor, and he said, well, it's town council, isn't it available for all of us? So no, it's not. And said, what we're talking about is not even just open for any department or employee, staff or anything to call. So when that comes up, I hope you'll all give it some thought and think about what you said here. That
Plus, when they get an answer, sometimes it takes a little bit of thought and interpretation, and I often like to discuss that with the person who's asked the question, because sometimes they'll fire back a question right away. Well, they didn't say this, and say, wait a minute, read their answer again. They've actually answered that for you.
yes.
So, I don't want people to just call back and forth because, oh, he said, okay, and they'll get into that kind of routine. And they'll get in it with me, and I know they'd be picking up the phone to the lawyer if that was what was allowed. And I'm like, oh, no, we don't really.
We want to get them the answers, but on the other hand, there's a way of making it concise too, and not just
Right, and just focusing.
pay by the hour.
I want to
so.
focus it so that they actually get what they really need to know.
Yeah. Okay. Supplies, let's see, computer supplies and service. We're going up about 2,000 on that.
What line item are you on? I'm just
It's-
following along. I got. You're down below.
1220.
Going up about 1,000. Which one?
Wait, what line item are you on? 01, what?
155.
Oh, you've gone to the 5.5s. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're looking at. Well, there's a couple of things I need to go over here for a computer supply and service. Going level fund on the telephone, that's fine. I don't think we're going to see anything. The other services.
No, the bottom one is increased 2,000.
I'm actually going to cut that back. My biggest problem is having sat down now with our renewal notice, our service agreement that I had put in there at 20 needs to be 26.5. So
26.5 instead of 20.
correct, instead of 20, because of our service agreements. And that has to do with all the computers in town hall. That has to do with the support we get. That's our licenses for email, for our storage, because we store all our emails. So every time we set up an account, which we set up a few this year, and we'll be setting up a few new ones next year. They switched to setting up the select board with email accounts, because you really have to archive those and
So
having
that's
them
an
use their
increase.
own email. So
Okay.
every time you put in an account like that, there's a monthly charge, because they now they archive it for us.
Yeah.
And so we added 2 this year. One person is still using a Gmail account, but next year I'm going to encourage the other 3 to all archive, because technically those are archivable, searchable
Yes.
requests.
Yeah.
So we really need to have some archival control over that. We had a couple other people in other departments that were using personal emails, and I'm really discouraging that. Again, certain boards and committees have approached us about getting town email accounts, trying to limit to that to maybe 1 per account, 1 for a chair or 1 for a committee, but it's all town business.
Yeah.
So, so there's some increase there in terms of having to pay those monthly charges. I don't know what everything's going to come out to. Plus, there's some increase by the terms of our contract with our vendor. So, I think we're going to
who do we
have
have the contract with now on
we have a
maintenance?
contractor's guardian, but I am exploring other vendors. So I'm getting quotes on that,
Okay.
what that would be, what would be included in those service contracts, how much support, when could we call, how much does it cost to call? Because we pay, just like you pay your lawyer, when you call to have them do certain things, we pay an hourly rate. So some of it is set, we know what our support contract is. Other things are estimated because we don't know how many times we're gonna call.
Yes.
We've had to call, every time we change staff, we have to call. We get a new profile set up, we get a new email account set up for that person, we get them new passwords in and out of the system. That's an expense every time we do it. So
So I
those
get a
charges-
new total of 72,000 then for that.
Right, I dropped the supplies down to 1, so it
So
went to
71.
71. And the
If you
reason
look-
that reason that budget number is in there, and the reason I had done 2 initially, but that I'm gonna drop it to 1, we've
Oh, the,
we put in an article last year for hardware, and we're gonna still do that. That's what we're researching now, working with a couple of vendors to see what our options are. But there's a lot of things that aren't included in that, like battery backups that go bad, if a cable goes bad, if we have to purchase a new phone, if we have all those the switches, all those little pieces that go with the networking. And we have over 20 computers that are associated with town hall alone. Just town hall, plus you have highway and fire. But the point is, every one of these, we have 3 battery backups on our servers. We have some. That's not in the budget anywhere. So if one goes, we got to buy it right away. We have to replace that battery backup. You can't have the server not on a battery backup. Some of that stuff's starting to really age out. It's as old as the servers and computers themselves, which puts them in the 4, 5, 6, 7-year range.
Yeah.
They're starting to die. We already had 1 battery backup go this year. And especially the ones on the servers are not inexpensive because they're programmable, so there's a chip in them. So it's not like you can just go and buy a $50 or $70 beefed up battery backup. Those cost hundreds of dollars, and then you have to pay your support people to come
Yeah.
and put it in. So it's,
Yeah.
so I just thought if we had something in there for things that we can anticipate going, switches, cables, battery backups.
Okay, then on the next page at the bottom, machine supply and service, which is,
Yeah, we're just gonna, I had added 500 for other supplies, but I think we're just gonna stay with the 2,000. I was thinking,
are we leasing the copper machine?
yes, we just got a new one. This is the old one.
Oh,
And right here. So it's actually
yeah.
it's actually working. Originally I thought, well, we could keep it with the whole point of getting a new one. So right now it works. When it dies, we're not going to put any money into it. So we're
Okay.
just going to do our lease.
It's just one that we're gonna allow other people to use for their, when we're gonna get one here, who's looking for it, the ComCom
I don't know, but they can use it now.
Perfect.
It works fine. And it's just, it got to the age where we can't, because we're on a lease and it's a support agreement, once they say we can't guarantee the parts anymore because your computer's now
yeah.
6, 7, 8, 9 years old, they can't get the parts anymore. So they no longer will give you the service agreement. Well, once you get out of the service agreement, a service call on these, it's very expensive if they can even get the part. So it makes sense at that point to just do a new service agreement. It's actually kind of nice. I mean, it includes our toner, and all that. So in that particular respect, it's actually a pretty good deal for us.
Okay. Next one is, nothing on that. You're gonna get rid of, we talked about this once before, you're gonna get rid of those accounts out of
So
it.
if you look at page 6, I had already changed that $500 out. So when you look at the master one, I had already taken
Okay.
that 500, taken it back to 2,000. So it's,
The next two, wages for the town hall custodian and building maintenance as steps and colas.
okay, yeah.
Town hall maintenance, we've got some changes there.
Let me just get to that page 2. I can see it clearer.
How is the pellet furnace working out? Think we're saving?
I think it's fine. It's hard for me to know. I assume it's the savings. I don't know what the old bills look like. It was here when I got here. But they had kept, I guess they kept heating fuel in there for a year and we hardly touched it. So in that respect, yes. And I don't think we spent as much on pellets as they had spent on heating fuel. So I do think it has saved some.
So you think water district's gonna be charging more? A little more?
Well, they're all going for rate increases, so I suspect so.
Yeah. And telephone?
Yeah, the reason I went up on the telephone, we have to purchase a couple. We don't have enough for the town hall.
You've added phones to,
Yeah, well, we had one in the accountant's office, and we have 2 people working there now, and so we have to purchase one there. We've had one that acted up. They're older, so we might have to purchase a second one. They're not inexpensive because they're connected to your computer system, so they're not like just going and buying a regular phone. They're actually computer.
okay. An additional 1,000 on maintenance and repair of the building.
Right, we were looking there, and I took it out of fuel oil. I
Okay,
think there's some projects that we could do that make
Yeah.
more sense to have money rather than fuel oil, where you can see we're not actually spending it. So I think I would reduce that down further, and maybe
Yeah.
undertake a couple of other maintenance projects that we'd like to get done.
and rubbish removal going up.
Yeah, you can already see that if you look back to last year actual, it's over the top of this year's budget. So we actually under budgeted last year. So if you
Okay.
look at last year actual, it was 2360, we budgeted 2,000, so you can anticipate that I don't think we're gonna have less. We have the same amount of pickups, so we're probably not gonna come in under the previous year.
Now, is that a contract? I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a routine pickup.
Yes, yeah, okay. Next is over on, you're decreasing custodial supplies.
It was just $100, yeah, and other supplies. I see that I don't see us using them that high, so rather than cut them dramatically first, I want to make sure it wasn't just a fluke. But when I look back, because it's up a little higher this year than it was last year, so I didn't want to go too far, but they still don't seem to be approaching the amount we have budgeted. So it looks like the last budget jumped dramatically to this year's budget, and I'm not sure why. So I thought I would bring it back more in line.
Okay,
And trying to keep the budgets around the same as they were if we're not spending the money.
yeah,
So we're really only going up $100 in this line item,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to reallocate it so we can track it better with what we're actually spending it on, where it makes sense to have it.
okay. And this is both elevators,
Yeah, I think we're
library in
okay
here.
on that one.
Okay, that's contract, isn't it, for maintenance?
Yes, and we also, the library's in there.
Yeah.
We do both.
And that is it, I believe, for those accounts, isn't it?
I think so. The other one's projects, and I don't have anything in there right now.
Okay. In general, anybody have questions about any of it?
Not at the moment.
Could stop me if I just kept going.
No, not at the moment.
Any?
No questions from my end. I have a question about the board clerk and the
Yep.
Memory Preservation Committee. Do we have to contact her about?
Yes, you should. You could come in and get her. I've got her email and phone number. Then you can reach out to her and say, hey, because she knows, I mean, she's been, so I would reach out to
We'd like to
her.
have a meeting like tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, she may not know about that one.
Well, if not, then we have, recording.
We do have a recorder, and she did print out a page that she's created. I'll have to ask Sandra tomorrow whether we created a box for her where that will be kept, so that you would take the recorder and a sheet, and then you would put them back there after the meeting, and then that would be the way to transition those.
Oh,
But I'll try to.
like this.
Right. So we'll check
I'll come
tomorrow.
in tomorrow.
Right, and we'll work
Figure
it out.
that.
Yep.
Okay.
We can do that.
Speaking of CPA, I don't know if any of you see that Northfield kind of news on the computer, on Facebook type of thing. And somebody was brought up about possibly having a sign for Center Cemetery, and then somebody has said, well, that would be a good thing for CPA money, but it's too late now, it closed the 15th. And then somebody else said, no, that wouldn't fit, so
You're talking Center Cemetery down here?
no,
Or,
Pentecost.
oh, Pentecost. The Center Cemetery, we have a sign.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, somebody did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my wife did that.
Yeah.
That would actually
Yes,
come
that's
under,
right, too, she
you
did.
know,
She was going to come to you, but she said it only costs like a couple $100 to do it. So we may do the same for Pentecost, so we're gonna donate another sign to the town, so.
I was going to pass this around. This is not set in stone. This is my first attempt to think about doing something like a capital plan for the
Okay,
town hall. And I'm just filling it in for the first time, but I just kind of wanted to show it to you. Although there are 2 things on here for 2021 I wanted to discuss with you, we want to do for the budget. And then I can just run you through potential future ideas, but we may or may not. And I tried to put little notes on the side to give you a sense. So the first one for 2021 would be the desk, and you talked about the table. They would build that whole desk and the table for the 4,300 out of solid wood.
now we haven't discussed whether we'd support that.
Correct. We haven't, I mean, you
You just-
supported it initially, so I brought them in to get the pricing.
Okay,
But the 15,000 on the security system, and the asterisk is there because I have the 5,000, it's 20.
is
And
that
I-
the locks,
It is, but I haven't done it yet because I've only got the 5 secured. So what I
Yes.
need to know from you guys is what your support is on the other
Okay.
15. So those are the 2 things I just put in 2021 because they exist now. I didn't particularly have anything for 2022. Things could move around. Yeah.
These 2, as far as doing, or at least the $15,000, are you thinking that might go, because we're going to eventually have a special town
We're
meeting.
hoping. We're still hopeful. When
So
we get this
are
thing.
you
It's
thinking,
really up to you.
are you thinking that you would want to have these on that?
That's right. I would
Okay.
like to do the locks on the sooner one, but I just wanted to. I wanted a
Okay.
placeholder somewhere where you could see where they were. So maybe 2020 at the special. You could revisit that at that time, or both of them at that time. I mean, it's up to you. You could talk
Okay.
about it. It could go in 22 or 23. Miscellaneous furniture. That's a bunch of. We need to get some chairs for the meeting room downstairs at some point, more in line with something more a little sturdy as opposed to folding chairs. Now that we have that nice table down there, we have some pretty lengthy meetings and things down there and trainings, and sitting in a folding chair for all that time.
and these would be stackable, wouldn't they?
We'd like to get something stackable. That's a total, we
Yeah.
just said, what if we bought 12 chairs and they were $100? That's a made up number. Before I come with a request, I would obviously do some more research. I was just trying to kind of get things in where they might fall.
One of the things being across the hall and seeing what happens there, they have folding chairs that go in there, and we spent an awful lot of money redoing the floors, and
They
the
scrape
chairs
it.
that they're putting in there are definitely scratching the floors. So something that would be less abusive to the floor would be a great thing as far as doing that.
So we could even think about that a year sooner. I mean, it's a small amount. I just was putting things in,
Sure.
Yeah.
moving them
Sure.
around. The groundskeeping, we're already having trouble with the mower. It's going in for repair an awful lot. Again, 2023 might be conceptually pushing it out too far.
What is it?
The mower, because
Oh,
the person, she does all the mowing.
Yes,
We've taken it in, I can't remember how many times was it out last year for
oh,
maintenance.
Really?
Several. The belt is slipping. We're having problems with it. It's not mechanical in the just yet, but anyway, I just want to put it on the schedule to be aware of it. Maybe we don't need it in 2023, but I think we're going to be looking at one
Now, this
sometime
is
in the next few years.
a pretty sizable one.
Yes, that's why I put 10,000 in. I have not explored what kind it is, and it's
Yeah.
not your regular just
Okay.
push mower. I put $1,000 in for potentially doing some more work on the auditorium sound. We would like to do some more exploration of soundproofing in there, and do some real serious soundproofing. The room is hard to use as a meeting room because the sound is really bad. Either something that you put up above to bring the sound down, they put these waiver things in, but it's very difficult to use for a meeting room. If you ever
Yeah.
had a meeting in there, the bouncing is
The acoustics.
brutal, right? So if we're going to
Anybody that's
continue,
voted knows that.
and the other night we had all the meeting rooms in use, when especially now, like for example with this project, the assessor's room, the assessors are in that room, so we've learned the hard way, as some committees have, that
They're
was
doing some work in
her office. Right, she'll be out eventually, but we've had multiple meetings looking for space now.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, it's something to think about. I just
Sure.
wanted to put them on the schedule. You can talk about it, and I don't even know what the costs really
Yeah.
are. I just
Okay.
placed them on there. I pushed the technology back out to show that in 2025, if we replace most of the desktops now, we'll be looking to do it again in about 5 years. That's about the lifespan of a desktop, give or take. And then I stuck a server out in 2027. That may be different than we thought. It may be more expensive. It also may be that we're not talking a terminal server this year, but I may be coming for one sooner. These are just things I'm identifying, so I'm throwing them on the schedule.
Okay. And then eventually you'll be moving what the departments have put in for their capital plans, like cruisers, on a
I
regular
actually
basis,
have.
highway trucks and that sort of thing.
Right. I actually have already. There's highway.
Okay.
But I have to update it with his requests this year, so I haven't done that yet. But I've done the same sort of thing with highway, and then he can move it around. I just asked him to do life expectancy of his vehicle, and then I just plopped it on the schedule. Again, it will move based on what he really thinks when the time comes, but it's just to give a sense of when you can see things coming. I had him list all the equipment, and we took some things off and put some things on, so I have to update this with him, get this in, and then update with his request. But this is just an idea.
Yeah.
To get a sense of when things are going to
You
hit.
probably have found there is, I think you told us once, there are several copies, but there had been one master one for the capital plan.
Right, but it was at the life end too. Like it only had a year or two left on it. Like it was
Yes.
done for
Yeah,
7 or 10 years
hasn't
ago.
been projected.
7 years ago, and so it's now. It's only got a couple
Okay.
years left, and then it's actually outdated. So again, this was just to give you a sense of the kinds of things we'd be looking to put on there. I don't,
Yeah.
it isn't hard and fast just yet, but I wanted to get together a
What we
capital
can
plan
do-
for the town hall.
Ultimately is discuss them and make a decision whether we want to leave them on there. I know you're not talking about funding for everything this year.
No.
But
These
we
would
can
not
talk
be.
about whether that's something we want to leave on the plan and
Right, and there
consider.
may be other things that people think, well, what have you didn't think about refinishing the floors, you didn't think about.
Sure.
I just figure what ends up happening is these things go and go and go, and then they pile up. And all of a sudden, you need to do the floors, and the windows need to be done, and you need new rugs, and you need, as opposed to seeing if we could do some of that along the way. Because then when you break them out, they're much smaller projects.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Like,
It's
for
easy.
example, and it didn't make it on here yet, we talked about it, the basement floor. And even not only just that, rugs. We need new rugs, the big mat rugs that are in some of the entranceways.
Yes.
Those are beginning to become difficult to clean, and because you have to, every now and then they just wear out. Their life expectancy isn't forever. So, and they're not the kinds of things that you can just spend $1,000 or $2,000 out of your maintenance budget, because that makes it very tight. Those are the kinds of things you say, they're not huge at town meeting, but they got to get on some kind of plan to make it into into the thought process. And those are the kinds of things that help preserve the floors and make things last
What
longer.
does it- How expensive is this service? I've seen, like in some stores or supermarkets or something, in their entryway, there's a service that comes in and changes the mats
over.
weekly, I think it is, and cleans.
Yeah, and they clean them and they take them away and clean them.
I don't know if they own them or whether it's just a rental thing that they,
Yeah, it's probably
There's-
just a service. It's like
just a service. You
it's like a
may-
uniform service. They provide
Yes,
a certain size
yes.
and they replace them. You never really own them.
Yeah,
I mean, there's those two.
Yeah.
And there's ways to explore it, but ultimately, you're gonna, this is it's just some is routine, and some is,
some's ongoing
Capital.
and some, yes. Yeah.
but there doesn't seem to be a, other than the day-to-day cleaning and that kind of thing, we need to think about bigger maintenance issues.
Okay, any comments, questions? Anybody?
No?
Okay. All right. Anything else that you want to,
I think that's it for me now. I will continue to update that master budget you have as we get more budgets in. I will get you the EMS, the newer EMS budget. 'Cause I think
yes,
there's a new one.
okay. And I will,
And the
I'll find
wastewater,
out who the Farms Library, Farms Library, I think it's a standard $500.
I think it's seven.
700.
How much?
Seven.
$750,
No,
okay.
700.
Seven, thank you.
And I'll send you the wastewater treatment
But
budget too,
I'll
because it looks like
Find
you
out,
did that.
and I'll see if I can contact Skip on that one.
I'll send out an email tomorrow to everybody I don't have. Now that I got a few of them in wastewater and a few of them in, then I'll look through and say, okay, you need.
The thing is, you can give them kind of an ultimatum and say, okay, if you don't, some of these smaller ones, if you don't submit your
We'll
budget,
level fund you.
we'll just level fund it.
Yep.
But then we want to be sure and take a look. If there was some particular reason it was spiked last year, we don't want to just perpetuate that,
Yeah.
That happened one year with one of the small ones.
And we did get an
Got a
email
computer
back.
or something.
I was on the accounting computer doing some things.
Yeah,
And I did find that there had been an email back to the accountant in response to, just so you know, and that's why the number is in there. Veterans.
well, there's a Veteran Service District, it's a.
No, that's different, that's an assessment. But
Oh,
there's the
veterans,
there's Memorial Day and the Veterans Memorial.
Yes,
And he did email back
yes.
for 1,000 for the Veterans Memorial, 2,000 for Memorial Day is adequate. So
Is
those
that-
are in there as a letter
That's the same as last year.
from
then.
Dennis.
Okay,
Yes,
all right,
yeah. So he did email back in December.
Okay.
And he just hit a response button to the town accountant, and so I don't think anybody else saw it.
yeah,
But I
okay,
printed it out, so
okay,
put it in my book.
all
So
right. Well,
we
I'll
did
mark
hear back
those.
from them, but that's
Yeah.
those numbers are fine.
Memorial Day.
So, but I have here, my list is AgCom, Fire Department, Civil Defense, Rec are really the ones that I didn't, because I
Yeah,
got sewer
I'll-
today.
Let's see
and
about that rec too.
AgCom.
And
So those are the
between the
last.
two of us, we ought to get somebody.
Hunt them down.
But I have to say that the usual ones.
The usual suspects.
Okay, now we're going to talk about the Finance Committee budget, and then we're going to be talking about this report from the COG. So on the Finance Committee budget, we have we have the Finance Committee expense, and we have the reserve fund. And the Finance Committee expense, other than increase for our secretary, which would be in COLA, I don't see any, there's going to be no change as far as her hours or anything like that are concerned. So it says $12.99 this year. So how about if we put the same thing down, plus a COLA step if she... And then, well, we had 55 for meetings and seminars. We haven't used it for a long time, but let's put it down just in case. and then 25 for supplies. And dues and memberships, yes, because we have this state finance committee, I guess they call it, that we pay dues to. They seem to have gone up, so 175 though was the increase was last year. So if we do that, that's really level funding except for any COLA, if that's okay with everybody. All right. And then now reserve fund we talked about, and then I said I checked it, and based on our total budget, we seem to be in line with 0.5% So I'm okay with 45,000 again.
Yep.
Everybody else okay? Are you filling one in, or do you want me to fill one?
I got it.
Okay. All right. So that's what we'll do for that. We got down to 37,000. We've gotten along for a few months here without problem. And then they didn't get that electrical work done when they thought, after all, did they? That was
You talking about for here?
No, school.
The school? Not yet. They're waiting for the plan, and then they're gonna, once that is done, they're gonna bid. But at this point, they won't be doing it till school's out, so they're
Yeah.
hoping to bid this winter.
So we came up with our money on an emergency basis, but it
Well, the
didn't.
money you
No.
did for emergency was for the boiler,
Or
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
and that's being, one boiler was already done,
okay.
and
So,
then the second boiler ran into a small problem, so we just abated a small section of
Okay.
asbestos, and that's been done. So we're
so
hoping.
they did use it. Okay.
Yes, so we're now hoping that the other boiler will be done shortly. Now that that piece has been abated, we're waiting for the
Okay.
contractor to do the last thing, which is the second boiler.
Okay.
And then we'll have a total accounting on actually how much was spent and all that.
Okay.
Now there's, I think the committees is kind of dissolving for the building use committee over there.
I have a meeting with Kathy
Right.
Wednesday. to
I
talk
hope not.
She's the
I hope
only
not.
one.
Well, that she's looking
She's
for.
the only one
she's
left.
looking for people.
What happened? Did Chad?
Yes.
I had been told that he was, and it was when I wasn't able to call him and so forth. We've had that committee for years, Building Utilization Committee, and they've done a good job. They have been feeling that they've been bypassed, and that's unfortunate.
The only thing I've been involved with has been this boiler project. That's, I mean, that we've moved pretty quickly to sign some agreements because we needed people in like the next day, but in terms of the electrical project, the electrical and sound project, they're also working with pretty closely with the buildings person for
Pioneer.
Pioneer.
Yeah, and that
So-
changed.
Right, but they have somebody in there now. But I know he was working pretty closely with the people with contractor discussions over the sound, the communications piece. That's
Yeah.
what I'm looking for.
I think
I didn't really
they're
have
used
much
to
to do
having
with that.
been involved in these things, and maybe something like that is
Yeah.
taking place, and it kind of ruffled their feathers. And
Yeah, I don't
and the
know.
principal is apt to not talk to them. Somebody else is on site and they talk about it and so
Right.
forth. So these people are kind of felt left out. Those two have been on for a long time.
And they've been instrumental in shepherding a whole lot of projects.
Yeah. Who was the principal that retired? He was on it for a little time, a little while.
King.
Tom King was, and then he went back to work somewhere. And there've been different ones on.
What I'm concerned with is because we have a closing of a school and we're going to be bringing some more students in there. How is that going to affect maybe
Have
some
they
classrooms?
voted to do that?
Yeah,
school
close,
committee
they closed
voted
it last
for
time.
Did
it.
they
They
vote to
gotta
close
wait
it?
for Desi to give the
So
thumbs up and thumbs down.
Yeah, I
that
know the
means
vote was
there
up.
might be some additional things that might have to be done to the school that they hadn't anticipated.
They
So-
have a bathroom project that's in dire need. So I think that's the project they're gonna. I haven't worked on the bathroom project, but it's been hanging out there for a few years. But I don't know. And then they had pushed off the fire alarm upgrades to do the communications instead. So those are, I think, the two capital projects that they're looking at. I don't know the details on any of them.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'll be meeting with Kathy on Wednesday, so I don't know whether she's met with them about those projects. I don't even know if they've been priced or, but those two projects probably do have to get done.
They started in the boys' bathrooms a year or two
Well, there's
ago.
a bathroom downstairs
Yeah.
and now they've had a leak. They've had 2 leaks and
Oh,
they're having some issues and it's in pretty rough shape, so they don't want to spend a lot of money on the plumbing. So I think it's when you get to that catch-22 with how much do you spend.
so, Chad's resignation has come in.
Oh, that was a while ago. I don't know that he actually wrote anything. I think he just sort of.
Chad's the kind of person that probably would write it, but he
He
came
may
in
not
and
have. You know what he did?
came in and
I don't think he renewed his
Well, that's what it
appointment.
was. He didn't.
Oh,
He didn't
when his term
resign. He
was
didn't
up,
do
yeah.
his renew his appointment.
That's,
He
that's
likes
a
to go
shame
kind
because
of like,
they build up quite a knowledge of the buildings.
Yeah, Kathy's got a ton of knowledge.
there's another person I'd like to throw out there if he was ever available and would want to do it, and that would be Peter Blake, who is and I don't know if he could do that because he's also the janitor over there.
Yeah, I don't think he could probably.
I
Be on
don't
the
know.
committee. He's a town resident as far as doing it. He knows that inside and out, and he knows what they need as far as doing that. And
But he would work with them
yes,
as the school representative probably,
Yeah.
on site,
So-
to do it.
There hasn't been a meeting in a while because I know they're waiting for stuff to come back from the person doing the electrical and communications piece. So but I
Okay.
think once that comes back,
So
I'm assuming they're meeting on it.
are we set with our budget then? That we feel comfortable with it and can give it to her?
Yeah, you want to vote our budget the way we,
Make a motion that we accept the budget as
Finance Committee
the
budget.
finance committee budget as determined.
Okay.
Second.
Tony seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Let's quickly do the minutes of last week's meeting. And then we'll get to the COG study.
I've read them, but I didn't.
Oh, okay.
They look fine to me.
I'm fine with it too.
I move we approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second.
Oh.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Thank you. Two pages. Whatever. We can separate that. Thank you. Okay. Last week we received the COG study, and so I put it on the agenda so we could discuss it this week if we want to. And I did receive an email from Mark Cassidy. Yes, and he says, please find attached the EMS budget request for fiscal 21. Included in this year's request is the creation of a full-time employee. Please see the staffing plan to the right of the wages line items. I have also included a capital request to replace our LifePak 12 cardiac monitor from the prior year EMS excess revenue funds. Additional EMS service performance information has also been included within the spreadsheet as a courtesy for review. Thank you, Mark Fordia. So, does anybody want to, now this, Mark is scheduled to come in the future here for his EMS. He's coming in. He set a date.
February 25th. Is that the date you had? Or was it
Right.
before that?
He's the 25th, he'll be in. And so But if you'd like to discuss any of it tonight, it's on the agenda, so it's okay that we can. I was a little disappointed in that I knew we were waiting for the COG study. I expected the COG study to be a little broader and talk about different options, where it seems to just focus in on Northfield providing service to Bernardston and perhaps Irving and maybe, I don't know whether the others or not. So anybody else have any comments or anything they want to talk about?
Well, I agree with Lois concerning the lack of real hard data in this study and the other thing too is that I just question some of these assumptions that they have in here. The first few that I've had is that Northfield increased its budget. We gave them additional, what was it, $42,000 last year, so they could provide, more personnel, because they said that with that they would be able to wouldn't have to seek an increase in their overall budget by providing service to the town of Bernardston. Of course, Northfield is providing this service to the Bernardston for no cost. And we had hoped for it was going to be for a period of 1 year, but it's actually going to be a year and a half. And now we're looking potentially of there's West Irving to provide service to them. Obviously, since we've offered such a nice incentive for Bernardston to provide service to them, it's obviously Irving is going to be looking to for probably a similar type of deal. Well, if I was a select board member, I'd be asking that. Because why am I any different than what Bernardston asked for? It's basically getting no cost to them to provide the service. The other thing too is that they made assumptions that they said that their call volume has increased so much that they're now having to provide more and more mutual aid to answer calls here in town. And yet they also say in this report that there's really no additional outside services available to provide, like example, like having AMR or some other service. They said that they're not available to provide service to this town. I'd like to know, because it doesn't specify here in this report that anybody ever contacted these companies or our neighboring communities to say, would they provide a service to us or not? And how much would they charge this community? And my concern is that this overall endorses a growth in this service that is just going to be increasingly more and more cost to the taxpayers of this town. We're looking at a potential cost for the next fiscal year of almost $85,000, which is double the request from last year. And the enterprise fund was supposed to originally set up so this would be self-supporting. Yet now more and more you're coming to the community to ask to raise taxes to pay for this service. And to see a doubling of that, of course the doubling is so they can increase the staffing. But what's coming next year? Another substantial increase?
Well, the thing is, basically, I want to have the person in front of us so we can ask these questions as far as doing that.
Oh, I know, but
Because I don't know if these fundings take into consideration any of the monies you get from any of the insurances as far as doing it.
well, this study discussed about the insurance, saying that they really don't make a great deal of money on any of the services that are for elderly people who are on Medicare. They're basically the flat rate. They're not making really any money on that, and yet they're hoping to do more private runs where somebody has health insurance, so they can get a higher, rate for that, fee for their service.
The revenue projections are attached here, and I don't know, it's based on a certain number of calls. So, well, the models they told about here would be different for charging, would be based on either population or EQB or a combination thereof and so forth.
Well, I had a question about that. I mean, I don't know, I didn't understand how they got to this alternatives A through F, because if you just look at population, Bernardston is ballpark 2,000 and Northfield is 3,000, but Bernardston would be estimated to pay them like 10% of what Northfield.
Yeah.
So I couldn't really understand how they ever got to any of these figures.
You look at it, it makes you think Northfield is so much larger than all the others.
Right.
And we're bearing a disproportionate share of the costs. Then I also concern us as we provide more and more services outside the community. What happens to the response time of the ambulances to go to residents who are in need of aid?
Plus the taxpayers are subsidizing
Yeah.
going to all these other towns.
Yes. Well, I think my impression is this sets Northfield up as providing an ambulance service for surrounding towns in competition with the private ambulance services. And it says here that we can respond faster with no statistics to back that up. And we've got, well, you've got to have two people to transport. And you've got to have, and they're talking about having paramedic level transport service and so forth. And yes, in many cases that's needed. So I guess the one that's at the station, if you put in a full-time person, is ready to go, but maybe they go to where the patient is and stabilize them and wait for the next one to come before they transport. Those are things that I would be concerned about. You mentioned last year, if you remember, the 42,000 last year was taxation, wasn't absorbed in the enterprise fund, and that was supplementing it. And at that time, we were told, it was sold to the people, voters, on the basis that if it weren't for Bernardston, they'd be asking for a lot more than that. In Bernardston, the income from insurance and so forth from the service to Bernardston was going to keep the cost for Northfield residents down, taxpayers down. I sometimes find it difficult to understand that math, but so be it. And then this year, you've alluded to this. This year it comes in with double
The cost.
Yeah.
When is,
and we did serve Bernardston.
The other thing is this report never addresses the issue of how you're going to manage this EMS service. What model are we going to use to have somebody who's in charge and operating the service? Are we going to look at a model like South County with a board running it? That's not even addressed in this study, especially if you're looking at growth of the service of potentially not only West Irving and then, who knows, potentially Gill down the road. I mean, we have to look at how we're going to run this service. And that's not addressed in this study at all.
Andrea, their budget that they submitted, looking at it, it looks like they're going to be proposing on-call time at $9.82 an hour. Is that on
What line are you?
on the right? The box on the right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's gonna have to come and talk to you about his budget. I only have a preliminary understanding of it all. But I think they already pay on-call time.
Because that'll be a factor in the next police contract if we're paying on-call time for one department and not another.
You already pay an on-call stipend,
For the police?
but it's not per hour, it's like a flat.
The other thing I had some questions about is also capital expenses. We're looking at, obviously the town is still paying a bond on an ambulance. What's that? I think we're either third or fourth year of paying that off.
This will be the fourth. I
Fourth
think.
year. And then you're looking at it potentially replacing the older ambulance and that, but I don't see any idea that, it looks like Northfield will be bearing that cost solidly again, because there's no contribution from the wear and tear that it goes to other communities. We're going to have to, if we're going to provide this kind of service, we're going to also have to say to these communities, you have to step up to the plate and bear some of the burden of providing the service. I mean, Northfield again, I'm sorry to say it's not going to be subsidizing other communities. This is, to me, is not fair to the taxpayers of this town. And plus, again, I have very serious concerns if we have responding to other communities, that if the townspeople have to wait for the second ambulance to come to provide them, that they're going to have a long wait time for a response. And to me, like I said, that bothers me. And again, their stats are not aren't very clear on their response times in this study. They say that they can respond quicker than a private ambulance from Greenfield, but they don't say if the station is manned or unmanned. I don't think they could respond in 9 minutes if the station's unmanned, and that doesn't even specify that in the report. My biggest thing too is the cost growth. I think we're gonna have to contain this or look at other options here. And I'd like to have the town look at, we keep hearing about private services aren't interested in looking to do any service for this community. But I hear generalities, I don't hear specifics. I don't hear AMR saying, we're not interested in providing service to Northfield. I'd like to hear it from them. Are they interested, if we wanted to have a commercial service provide ambulance to this town, would they be interested? If they are yes or no, and how much it would cost if they were interested in doing it. So I don't want to hear generalities, they're not interested. I want to hear specifics on that issue.
I have one other major concern on this. When I say, are we going into competition with private, like AMR and so forth? We talk about what's the best service that we can provide for our residents and taxpayers, residents, I guess you should say. But why are we trying to say Northfield is going to do this? I thought South County provided a pretty good model. And when one of the interims was here, he had good knowledge of what had gone on down there in South County and got some information about it. And as I believe, well, it's Whately, Sunderland, and Deerfield. And they may have each had an ambulance, I'm not sure. Two of them probably did anyway. And so, but they have combined, they have a method of allocating the costs, and they are run by a board of directors with participants from each town. And if Northfield is going to be providing an ambulance service, I'd like to see us consider something like South County's model and not just have this like a 1 or 2 man operation. I think a board of directors with participants from all the parties involved and a sharing on an equitable basis of the cost would be something. I probably told you about, there was an accident several months ago right in front of my house where a car hit, I don't know why, but they hit head on to a, facing west, hit a pole. AMR showed up, Northfield showed up. AMR eventually transported. I didn't go out, I don't know why, and so, but they had her in one ambulance and then moved her over to the other. So
I think it's a discussion we should probably have when he's here. Just
we will.
Keep track of the questions you want to have
we will
answered or asked as far as doing that. And
but I thought we should get some idea of consolidation of our thoughts on this and a chance to talk about it. But anybody else?
No, I just think look this over, make sure you understand what's going on, and then we will discuss it.
I think this has evolved. We started out with EMS, and then with the older vehicle. Then it was upgraded, and then we felt it was necessary to get this.
Supposedly there is a commitment, or I don't know if it's in writing or not, but they're willing. Bernardston is willing to contribute $10,000.
Yes,
that's not enough as far as I'm concerned.
The fire chief has apparently, as I understand it, and what I hear is that he has got the finance committee and select board to support the $10,000 contribution to Northfield.
But if they were paying equitably based on population for the 85,000 or whatever, they should be paying around 32,000.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's all we're looking for, is to be equal, you know. The towns that they get involved pay their share as far as,
Right.
just like we do with the school, as far as doing it. Whatever you can afford to pay as far as doing that without bankrupting yourself. Or without taking sole possession of.
Yeah.
Last week's select board meeting, last Monday's select board meeting, excuse me. No, not last night, a week ago. Got it. You spoke about this study and about offering the position or something?
No, I was just saying that when I went and talked to them, just when I went to the meeting where this was sort of handed out and talked a little bit about it, it had all been done and discussed before I did. So I don't really have a strong background in this study. I only sort of got it finished like you did. You know, I was just sort of saying to them that this had come to the select board. It'd been, I guess, required, or the select board had asked for it. It might have been DLTA, local assistance funds, that had asked for this kind of study. So that's why they had sort of presented it to them first.
Sure. Oh yeah,
and,
that's
you know, they
fine.
kind of saw it as, and this isn't getting into the numbers, they kind of saw it as you're kind of in one of those positions where it's not necessarily sustainable the way you're doing it. So you kind of either have to decide whether you're going to pull back maybe, or whether you're going to grow. And I think that's why, that's kind of where you're on that balancing point. Because, and this is just the impression I got from the director, you know, that you can't necessarily continue to do this at this level. He doesn't have the staffing. There's not a lot of volunteers. He has less volunteers than ever. And so if you're going to continue to do the service at the level he's providing, he has to something has to change. This was the one avenue that he's presenting. Now, you could say, let's go backward, let's go less, let's stop serving Bernardston. I don't know. I'm not sure what the answer is. And then maybe that would solve that to some extent. But you're right. I think the running with two is problematic. Now, he was proposing that if you staffed it with a single person, it would not be him as the chief, because he said, I'm almost always the second runner. So I would propose that you hire somebody else and that he continue to be the second person on call. That was sort of the initial discussion, but there was nothing set in stone. That's what this report was, just to kind of look at the numbers and see what that model might look like. I don't know how the Bernardston, I've never talked to the Bernardston Fire Chief, I've never talked to the Bernardston Select Board, so I don't know how their feeling is about the growth of this. Presumably they're happy with the service they're getting. We certainly haven't gotten any complaints. And I don't know anything about AMR. I honestly don't. I haven't tracked it. I do know I was in the room with the chief from Irving, and they were interested because this part of Irving, they don't run an ambulance service. They do basic EMT from the fire department, which is what Bernardston does.
Yes.
And so they're serviced part of them is serviced out of Montague.
And some of it out of Orange, isn't it?
So they were interested in it because they felt it would be better service to a part of Irving that is, you know, for them. And from the impression I got, no numbers were thrown around, they were much more considerate of paying for something towards their service. They weren't expecting it to be free. That wasn't the impression I got. But that was in looking at the fact that Bernardston would pay something. So they were both paying something towards the service. I don't know what model that takes. They ran through some potential formulas here. And I can't say that I know enough about South County to know. I do know that that's an assessment model, and it's also a ownership model. So South County as an entity I don't know whether it belongs to the towns, but as a separate entity, which took a long time to form. I think it's like a district. So there's legislation involved, I believe, and they have an assessment model. So it's a different model than this. It's not that it isn't impossible to do, but it's a completely different model than this is going. and they have a board because they're all members of the
Different
district for whatever.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
sure what you'd call it,
Sure.
as opposed to this being right now Northfield's department. So you'd have to change that model.
Mhm.
It's not impossible. It's not undoable, but I don't know the South County model well enough to compare the two. But it would be a board because you would change the model of ownership, the model of it as a district.
I thought maybe this study would allude to that a little bit, to the South County one, since we're talking about different, more
Right. You'd have to
towns.
change. That would be a complete change to
Yes.
a district. And then you'd have to see who really wants to join the district, and those people would have to make the commitment as like a whole town, because those
Yes,
towns
yeah.
belong in total.
Yes.
So you would want towns that would
I
join.
fully realize that volunteerism is just, you can't survive that
Well,
way.
the problem is what you need today. They've made it harder and harder. It's paramedic. Paramedics are hard to come by, and because you're not hiring a paramedic, you're relying on all paramedics who have full-time employment somewhere else.
Yeah,
So all you're getting from them is their extra time.
sure.
And that's very hard to put a schedule together, I think, for EMS, made up of other paramedics' extra time, because they're all working full-time jobs. And
I
so,
wonder if we need to, one thing we need to think about maybe in all of this is, this is going to happen with the fire department as well, as far as volunteerism. The days are gone when we had employers here in town that if there was a fire, go, and it's fine.
or people
That's
were
a long
farmers
time
and were
ago.
self-employed and
Yeah,
could just go.
could go. So if we're going to talk about maybe having to have somebody full-time, some people, I don't know how many, on the fire department, and a lot, as you mentioned, a lot of places their firemen are their EMTs,
Correct.
and at not necessarily just the basic level like these
Correct.
towns we mentioned, but as a paramedic level.
Shelburne Falls is an example.
They have it, okay?
They have a chief who is the head of the ambulance and the fire.
Okay,
And he's a full-time employee, he's the only full-time employee.
so it's
But he's
not
the chief of both.
something we can do right away, and you'd
Right.
have to grandfather
It's a
in the
different
people we already
model.
have on the fire department and so forth. But maybe we need to go think beyond and think what the ultimate will be in the future.
I think the logic they went to is they had part-time, part-time, and both those people, because it wasn't a full-time job, were doing it part-time.
Yeah,
And therefore, recruitment, training, retention, all that kind of suffers because somebody's kind of doing it on their spare time as much as they can. Whereas when they decided to go bite the bullet and hire someone full-time, that's their job. Recruitment, retention, training. And they felt, I don't know how it's worked out. I'm assuming well, I think they're still going. But I think they felt that was the way to make the best result for all of that, if that was someone's job.
I think that probably what you want to do is one of the different discussions we have, and we have the other towns when we do the selectmen and finance committee, maybe get off the school mode and get into some of these other areas where we might want to share, but if you share with full-time personnel,
yeah.
and then it's kind of a hybrid personnel, full-time personnel and volunteers as far as doing that. Work
We
that,
talked
which is
a
like
little-
part-time as far as doing that.
A
But
little about
I-
last meeting
yeah.
about that.
and I-
Right. They
So-
basically go to one full-time person who's covering a lot of territory. Everybody else is still
Yeah.
part-time, volunteer, whatever the model.
Yeah, work into the full-time gradually maybe, or maybe one works like for Shelburne Falls in that area for a while.
Right. And they combined fire and EM. Well, I think he's a
Yeah, I don't think
he's a
right now
paramedic
that
to
you
do it
actually
and
can
combine.
have one town take that responsibility because none of the towns have enough funds to be able to do that. But with that said, I think that this discussion will go on forever until we decide what we want to do. So
Yeah.
I'd like to move on to other things.
I think ultimately, it should be up to our voters because they're the ones that are gonna foot the bill. And I think that's what we should be going for. Okay. Anything else on that? Okay. Any meetings attended representing the Finance Committee? Tony, you had a meeting.
No, it's tomorrow.
CDL. Oh, excuse me. Okay, tomorrow.
No meetings.
Any luck on getting a meeting going on the emergency services facility?
I told you,
Yeah.
it's Wednesday.
Oh, that
I
one.
responded to you, right? Oh, that for the,
Emergency to public safety. Have you
oh,
skipped?
that, no. I haven't yet. I was kinda, waiting to see if we got something out of our meeting with, with Bernardston to throw onto that agenda. And I made a list of a few things for that agenda item. I think we need to talk about the cement repairs. We need to talk about, other locations.
Yeah.
People have been talking about if this one is off the table. A couple of ideas have come out, and we need to talk about whether those have been firmed up and if any research needs to be done on any of them. What might need to be done. Wetland studies or, on what, if you've got some possibilities, what those could be. And again, talking about what you're actually serving. If you're fixing this building, is it going to be a break off for one of the departments and build it for two of the others? Like, that still needs to be firmed up. So the committee needs to meet and talk about that.
Okay.
So yes,
So no scheduled meeting yet?
not
But you're
scheduled
working on
yet, but I do have, I was making a list for an agenda to throw out there and say, here's the items I have, anybody else, and let's set a meeting.
it. Okay. And the water one hadn't met. You were going to have a...
We're meeting with the selectmen on Monday to see if they'll support requesting
Yeah.
a few $1,000s for technical assistance as needed for grants.
2,000.
Looks,
How
I
much?
think 5.
5. Okay. How is the work going on that committee?
Well, since you'd be applying for grants at some point and we've missed a few deadlines, it's in the very early stages.
Okay. Land is a problem, isn't it? Location.
Well, land is always a problem, and there's not a lot of open developable land available for something like this.
Yeah.
But there is some, and maybe a professional would find a little bit more. So,
Seems like a good idea, to get going on that.
well, open space has its own committee, and that's good, but you can't keep making open space and not providing jobs in town and increasing tax revenue.
No. Goes different. Then this questionnaire they've sent out.
I haven't seen the questionnaire.
You
Oh,
didn't get mail to you?
Oh, I haven't looked at it. I
okay.
mean, I knew it was coming out, but I haven't looked at it.
Oh, okay. All right. In the mail here, I noticed that we've got a copy of our final 2021 budget from the Solid Waste District, but that's an assessment too. Did you get a copy of that?
I did. It's incorporated by your Board of Health in his
Yes.
budget.
Yes. Okay. So we'll have that. All right. Anything else anybody wants to bring up? I think that's it, as far as I'm concerned.
I was just wondering, we talk about South County and, but no one knows anything about it. Would it behoove us to get some information from them about how they went about it?
We
I don't know.
might get to that point.
Painfully, from what I understand. But they do, they do operate. I don't know what their assessments are. I don't know their structure.
I mean, just find out a little bit more about that structure.
Yes. It won't hurt, certainly, to
I don't
find
think
out.
it would hurt.
I don't know anyone on the board of directors. I would guess probably some representatives from maybe Tom Feidenkevitz from Select Board down in Sunderland, I would imagine. Select Board would be represented probably from each of the towns and stuff, so. All right, so we're gonna skip a week And then in 2 weeks' time, which will be February 4th, we've got Deb Kern and John McGowan coming in. Then we've got tax collector treasurer, and then Beth is going to do the assessors one. I'm going to put yours down in case we have time. We can do
Sure.
it anytime
Sure.
along. And then on the 11th, the tech school will be in with their presentation, and the Board of Health. So far, I've got those two lined up. And then on the 2 weeks from there, on the 25th, is when the EMS, and we'll see if we can get Skip in or not. I'm hoping to get things wound up so that you can get going on the rest of the town meeting and stuff. Okay,
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I second the motion.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, thank you.
I said,